The part of Superman is one of the most coveted roles in all of the Hollywoods, with only a handful of actors putting on the iconic tights. Casting it, however, has always been a nightmare. You need such a specific look and height and temperament, but it's been an interesting nightmare, full of names you might not expect to see. So let's go through 50 of them, briskly, because you know, it's 50, we haven't got all bloody day. I bet you've got a thing to do. Christopher Reeve made the dual role of Clark Kent and Superman his own, and he beat out over 200 actors who auditioned for this role, with numerous others who were also considered, such as Robert Redford, who it was thought was too expensive and too famous, as well as Paul Newman, who was offered his choice of Jor-El or Superman, plus a $4 million salary. Clint Eastwood said he was busy, James Caan didn't want to wear a dumb suit, and Stallone was considered too Italian. Plus it was in Marlon Brando's contract that he had to approve, but you know, Brando didn't like anyone. That guy had he had a lot of problems. Among the more unusual choices by producer Ilya Salkind were Muhammad Ali and his wife's dentist, Don Voight. Also Al Pacino,
tits, hooah,
Neil Diamond, and Elton John. We also get the likes of Warren Beatty, John Beck, Charles Bronson, who was thought to be too earthy, which makes sense. Yeah, look at this guy. Looks like he was raised in the center of the earth. Sam Elliott, Dustin Hoffman, Patrick Wayne, Burt Reynolds, Richard Gere, James Brolin, Lyle Wagner, after playing Steve Trevor in the Wonder Woman TV series, Perry King, Chris Christopherson, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who wasn't considered but campaigned hard for the part. But it doesn't end there. We got Ryan O'Neal, Jeff East, who ended up playing young Clark Kent with a weird fake nose, and Christopher Reeve dubbing over all his lines, Jeff Bridges, David Soul, Robert Wagner, and Jan Michael Vincent.
In a world where there's 8 Jan Michael Vincents.
We need 1 Jan Michael Vincent to Quadrant C. We need 2 Jan Michael Vincents to Quadrant E.
And 16 quadrants. There's only enough time for a Jan Michael Vincent to make it to a quadrant. He can't be at 2 quadrants at once. Is it important that we know who Jan Michael Vincent was in order to get this? Nope.
Steve McQueen was at one point thought to be a good fit, but then considered too out of shape. But come on, this is the 70s, man. Everyone's out of shape, except for Bruce Jenner, now known as Caitlyn Jenner, who dropped out of contention to appear in the Village People movie Can't Stop the Music. In the end, the frontrunners included Jon Voight and Nick Nolte, the second of which insisted that he play Superman as a schizophrenic. Of course, relatively unknown actor Christopher Reeve won out, with the announcement made just 35 days before shooting. After this era of Superman films ended, with the slow motion fight on the moon and the most 80s man you've ever seen being thrown into a nuclear reactor, a number of projects were considered until Superman Returns eventually got off the ground, including Superman Lives, a Batman vs Superman movie. I've actually got an animated video on that, which I'll link at the end and below, and Superman Flyby, written by J.J. Abrams. Nicolas Cage was famously cast by Tim Burton in Lives, but prior to that, Kevin Smith had written a version and suggested Ben Affleck. Producer John Peters at one point insisted on Sean Penn for a very odd and specific reason.
He's got the eyes of a violent, caged animal, of a fucking killer. And I was like, dude, it's Superman.
After that version went down the toilet, there is actually a great documentary on it though by John Schnepp. You should check it out. Some of the actors considered were Josh Hartnett, Jude Law, who Singer wanted for Zod in Superman Returns. He ended up cutting that role. Other names that have popped up include Paul Walker, Matt Bomer, who eventually played him in animated form, Brendan Fraser, Ashton Kutcher, David Boreanaz, Ian Somerhalder, Henry Cavill, Jerry O'Connell, Jason Behr. How do you say that? B-E-H-R. I don't know. Jared Padalecki, Ryan McPartlin, Hayden Christensen, and Jim Caviezel was very interested, but Bryan Singer thought he was too famous after Passion of Beating Up Jesus for 2 hours. Tom Welling of Smallville fame was in the mix, and Zac Efron, who wanted advice from Leonardo DiCaprio, turned it down. Will Smith was courted and has spoken about it, but made mention that he turned it down immediately. He said he didn't want to mess with white people's heroes after Jim West in that movie about a giant metal spider. This all, of course, led to Brandon Routh being cast in Superman Returns, who funnily enough was 26 at the time, the same age Christopher Reeve was. Justice League Mortal, the George Miller directed project that very nearly happened in 2009, had DJ Cotrona cast. That whole thing fell apart though, leaving the role open to be refilled in Man of Steel. For the Zack Snyder project, Matthew Goode was considered, and there was a rumor that Superman was to be enhanced with CGI, similar to what they did with Green Lantern, I guess? Which would have been really something. Something terrible. Armie Hammer expressed interest, who funnily enough was George Miller's Batman. Joe Manganiello very nearly secured the part, but his True Blood commitments kept him away. And Colin O'Donoghue, who starred alongside Cavill in Tudors, was also looked at. Brandon Routh was keen to reprise the role, and he would have if the proposed Superman Returns sequel got off the ground, but of course with this being a reboot, Henry Cavill stepped in. And the rest is history. History I just went through in this video that you watched. By the way, there was more than 50 in this. It ended up being like 60 something, but I stopped counting because, you know, who cares? But if you had to choose any of the actors mentioned to fill the role of Superman, who would you have chosen? And hey, if you like things on YouTube, videos on YouTube specifically, head over to the 101 Facts channel, where you'll find all manner of awesome videos, but specifically their latest, 101 Batman Facts. Now, if you don't know who Batman is, just remember that you do, because you're a person that lives on this planet. Also, if you feel like subscribing here, that'd be awesome. And maybe you could check out my podcast, The Weekly Planet, where we cover movies and comics and TV shows. It was recently voted World's Best Podcast in the What's the Best Podcast Awards, which is a thing I just made up then. Sorry for lying, I feel like I've lied a lot in this. Alright, that'll do it. Thanks everyone. Take care.